kids, it's Mrs. Kennard, and we are on the cutting edge of learning science. We're doing a flipped classroom today, or tonight, whenever you're watching this. We're going to talk about the light reaction in photosynthesis. I know you've heard about it before, you know the equation, but let's go back and go a little deeper. So we all know we need a little CO2, carbon dioxide, and then if we add a little water, H2O, and a little sunlight energy, we're going to get a product, and that product is C6H12O6, also known as glucose, and a little oxygen. Okay, so I said we were going to look at the light reaction, and if we look at the equation, we know that the only thing that includes light here is the sunlight energy part, so we're going to focus on that, and we're going to move to a model that I have for you. Okay, my friends, here we are in my beautiful model. Isn't it fantastic? And this is a model of the two photosystems within the chloroplast. So we're deep inside the chloroplast now. And we're going to look at non-cyclic electron flow. And this is the predominant route in photosynthesis. And so if you see over here where my hand is now, we have photosystem 2, or P680. And these little Hershey's Kisses are electrons. Now, if we shine a light on the photosystem, oh dear, made a little noise, but that's okay. So I'm shining a light now, as you can see, and my electrons, they're getting really excited. And they get so excited that they can't sit still. And they leave the photosystem. And they travel along, and they end up in photosystem 1. And this continues to happen as the light shines. They continue to move. Now, meanwhile, photosystem 1, the electrons here, are also getting excited, and they're leaving for parts unknown. They're actually going off to the Calvin cycle. Okay, so we keep doing this, and we replace electrons that have left in photosystem 1. I hope you're noticing. And even after they go, another one comes and sits in its place. But now, please look at photosystem 2. We do have a problem. There's no more electrons to be excited. What will we do? Okay, back to our equation now. We saw what sunlight energy was doing. It was exciting our electrons to the point where there were no electrons left. And this is where water comes in and saves the day, if you will. And through a process called photolysis. And you recall that lysis is to break. Photo has something to do with sunlight. And it's the breaking of water. And water breaks and releases electrons. Okay? So when this water splits, electrons are released. And we know that hydrogen always goes with those electrons. That leaves us with oxygen being released as a waste product. So let's go back to the model and see how that works. Okay, back to our model here. And so I have these great Hershey's Kisses that are silver to represent electrons from water. And they actually, once water splits, will replace the electrons that were removed from photosystem 2. And that's how water keeps photosynthesis moving for us. So, we just watched some moving Hershey's Kisses, right? And we saw that they were excited by light, and then they moved from photosystem 2 to photosystem 1, and then they got replaced by water in photosystem 2. And what I'd like to just sort of call attention to what that's called. That is called non-cyclic. It's non-cyclic, meaning it doesn't go in a cycle like most things that we have. And this is non-cyclic electron flow, right? So those little Hershey's Kisses represented our electrons. Why would it do that? And why does it go from 2 to 1? Y is 2 P680. Y is 1 P700. All right, well, let's talk about that. Photosystem 2 came second if we look at evolutionary ways, okay? Photosystem 2 came second. Its P680 means that it absorbs optimally at the wavelength of 680 nanometers. Photosystem 1 came first, hence it's number 1. And it absorbs optimally at a wavelength of 700 nanometers. So some things happened over time, and we ended up with 2 different photosystems. And it actually works pretty well for the plant. Now I want you to think about something. Until we had these 2 photosystems, did we have oxygen? Well, actually no. So we have to talk about non-cyclic flow. Cyclic, sorry guys. Cyclic flow does occur as well, and this was how it used to go. So if you were just a little tiny plant cell, you didn't need a whole lot to survive. You were just obtaining energy from the sun, using it for your cell, and calling it a day. So your little electrons would just get excited and go back. This also still functions. Why? Why do we still do this today? Why do we have photosystem 1 operating by itself in addition to operating with photosystem 2? Well, we need a little bit of ATP. And you recall ATP is your energy carrying molecule for the Calvin cycle. The Calvin cycle is where you make the C6H12O6, if you remember from our formula. We hadn't addressed that yet. Okay, so here we are, photosystem 1, and we have our little electrons. And what's going on here in the cyclic flow is they get excited, and then they transfer their energy. What always goes with energy? Those hydrogen atoms. And the electron loses its energy, it falls back into the photosystem. Where does the energy go with the hydrogen? Well, that goes in an electron transport chain to make ATP. You remember those from cellular respiration. I left out another point when we do non-cyclic. And these guys are leaving. How do they get from here to here? Do they fly? No. They actually follow an electron transport system. Do you see how these things kind of, if something works well, they keep repeating? That's how they go from photosystem 2 to photosystem 1. And they actually fall into photosystem 1 when they lose energy. And then we said, well, they took off. They left from photosystem 1. Where are they going? Electron transport chain. They're going to the Calvin cycle. And they're going to go via an electron carrier. And if you remember from cell respiration, we had an electron carrier, NAD. And this one's really easy to remember. It's NAD. Let's just write that up on the board, if we can. So NADP is your electron carrier. It's going to carry electrons with energy, which is what we need to make those sugars in the Calvin cycle. And when it does pick up those electrons, I'm going to flip the page if that's okay with everyone. It becomes NADPH. And NADPH is going to bring electrons to the Calvin cycle. Calvin cycle is also known as the light independent reaction. Some people call it the dark reaction, but that's kind of a misnomer. It just doesn't require light, but it does require the products of the light reaction. So it requires some the NADPH, and it requires some ATP, and we left one thing out all along since the start of this, and that was CO2, the carbon dioxide that the plant takes in. It's going to pull that in through stomata in its leaves and utilize that CO2 and this energy to make that product C6H12O6, also known as glucose. So now we have pretty much addressed all the molecules from the equation for photosynthesis.